What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. Welcome to my podcast, guys. Welcome. So let's get right into what America is talking about, guys. It has been a really tough week. The stuff is hitting us so quickly, guys, and we have to stay on top of it. Your boy Trump is just out of control, and we need to just talk about what is going on. This has been a tough week, guys, because this stuff is coming so quickly and so out of filter and just so off base that it is exhausting. And I said that I had dedicated myself to doing my part and making sure that I get the word out there as to what's going on with Donald Trump. You elected him. I'm talking to you that voted for him. And this is what we got to deal with. So we liberals, we Democrats, we people that didn't vote for him, we're doing everything we can to hold this man in check so he does not destroy our country and avert our democracy. But you know who told us so quickly and so lovely and with such grace about exactly what to expect was Michelle Obama. Let's listen to what she said in her campaign speech with Kamala Harris right before the election dropped. Listen to what Michelle said. She had a lot of insight. Here we go.
Once and for all. Because believe me, if Donald Trump is president again, at some point or another, that ugliness will touch all of our lives. And it will not matter what you look like, how you worship, who you love, or how you vote. If you don't make 6 or 8 or 12 figures, if you're not famous, if you criticize or disagree with him in any way, if he doesn't view you as his equal or relevant to his ambitions, I promise you, he will not think about you when he gets into the Oval Office. And that will have real consequences for all of us. If your town gets hit by a natural disaster, who do you want looking out for you? Is it Donald Trump, who's spreading so many lies and conspiracy theories about climate change and FEMA that the workers in North Carolina trying to help folks clean up after the last hurricane were fearing for their safety? Or is it Kamala Harris, who has been meeting with local officials, comforting the families in that state and doing everything she can to get folks the help they need?
She tried to warn us. Michelle Obama is such a smart woman. I mean, everything that she's saying is happening right now. We've had our natural disasters, a plane crash, LA fires. What do we have? And a non-compassionate leader that is handling those things. And he's claiming all kinds of false lies, conspiracy theories, whatever. Everything has to be about him. Why don't the American voting public that voted for this guy understand that? Where are the American people in this equation? Nowhere. So the latest stunt on Mr. Donald Trump's watch has been the Gaza Strip. There was a press conference, guys. And he met with Netanyahu. And there was a press conference and there were questions, and he had his idea on what he thinks should happen to Gaza. So I'm just going to show you, what does Donald Trump want? This is what Donald Trump wants, guys. This is crazy. Donald Trump, as of early February 2025, President Donald Trump has proposed a controversial plan for the Gaza Strip. His proposal involves the United States taking control of Gaza and relocating all of its residents. The plan has been met with significant international criticism. Legal experts and human rights organizations have condemned it. Additionally, his plan has faced skepticism and opposition from various global leaders, including U.S. allies. So he basically is wanting to make the Gaza Strip a Riviera of the Mediterranean, of the Middle East. He's thinking of this from a business standpoint, as from a hotel owner of a place that has had conflict for many decades. Many, many decades. And you know what? This is something that he's been thinking about for a while. Listen to what his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said back when he was in office the first time. Listen to this.
Took them, Europe took them, Jordan took them. For whatever reason, here in Gaza, there's refugees from the fighting, from an offensive attack that was staged from Gaza. Israel's going in to do
recue this back up
a
for you
long-term
guys.
deterrence mission.
I'm going
And
to recue
it's
this
just,
back up.
it's unfortunate that nobody's taking the refugees.
We'll
But
start
also
that
there
again.
are real fears on
Took them, Europe took them, Jordan took them. For whatever reason, here in Gaza, there's refugees from the fighting, from an offensive attack that was staged from Gaza. Israel's going in to do a long-term deterrence mission.
Okay, we'll start that over one more time. Here we go.
Took them, Europe took them, Jordan took them. For whatever reason, here in Gaza, there's refugees from the fighting, from an offensive attack that was staged from Gaza. Israel's going in to do a long-term deterrence mission. And it's just, it's unfortunate that nobody's taking the refugees.
But also there are real fears on the part of Arabs, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of them, who think once Gazans leave Gaza, Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. So, if you think about even the construct, Gaza was not really a historical precedent, right? It was the result of a war, right? You had tribes that were in different places, but then Gaza became a thing. Egypt, used to run it. And then, over time, you had different governments that came in different ways. So you have another war, usually when wars happen, borders are changed historically over time. And so my sense is I would say, how do we deal with the terror threat that is there so that it cannot be a threat to Israel or to Egypt, right? I think that both sides are spending a fortune on military. I think neither side really wants to have, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. And Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up, livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
You saw Tom Friedman's column on Tuesday about where he put forward a plan to get out of this. Biden should recognize the Palestinian Authority unilaterally as a state, and MBS should go to Jerusalem like Egyptian President Anwar Sadat did in 1977, and he should say, I'll normalize with Israel, I'll recognize West Jerusalem as your capital, and I'll even pay to rebuild Gaza if you recognize a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. What do you think? Good idea?
No, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that there's certain elements of it that are correct. I think proactively recognizing a Palestinian state would essentially be rewarding an act of terror that was perpetrated into Israel. So it's a super bad idea in that regard.
So they never, ever wanted to do a two-state solution. They're talking about making this thing a resort community, moving the people out, which is ethnic cleansing, doing it all up, as Trump says, clean it all up, get all the mines out of there, make it really beautiful, but move the people out. This is their home. This is their home. So let's listen to what Trump said in the press briefing that he did with Netanyahu.
Withheld from Israel.
Short on specifics, President Trump added that the Palestinians in Gaza should resettle elsewhere during the takeover.
We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings.
The announcement was met with shock around the world. Leaders of several of the most powerful Arab nations have previously said that they strongly oppose any suggestion that residents of Gaza be resettled in other nations. Other experts say the proposal is unrealistic.
It's not a plan that has any connection to reality in today's Middle East.
The meeting comes as Israel and Hamas begin talks on the second phase of a peace deal, which would free all remaining hostages and end the war.
Now, on whether U.S. troops would be sent to Gaza as part of this plan, the president said he would send in American forces if necessary. When asked who would eventually live in Gaza once it's rebuilt, President Trump said it would be home to mostly Palestinians, but said it should be an international place.
All right. So there you go. We're going to move all the people out. We're going to clean up Gaza. We're going to make it a beautiful place. And maybe the Palestinians can come back home. This is their home. That's like telling you, hey, in Texas here where I live, we're going to move you out while we do some things. And you can come back. Where are you going? Where are you going? Do you understand this? So they had this idea in their head a long time ago. And what about the hostages? Shouldn't that be first thing? Let's get the hostages home. This is the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. And when I was watching it, I was like, is this really happening? I mean, sometimes I have to think about, am I the only one thinking this is a crazy idea? Because I'm by myself and I'm thinking, is this crazy? Luckily, today, a lot of the Republicans put some pushback onto Trump. So he's kind of walked it back in sorts. But he's going to still think that it's his idea and he's going to try his best. He's going to keep saying it because it's his idea. He doesn't like to get knocked down about anything. So let's just talk about the Gaza Strip. Let's give some history on the Gaza Strip. Like, what is it and why is this happening in this war? If you don't know anything about Gaza, it's in the Holy Lands area. So let's just give you some history of what's going on. The fight in the Gaza Strip is the result of a complex decade-long conflict rooted in historical, political, and territorial disputes between Israelis and Palestinians. Historical context: territorial disputes. In 1948, the establishment of Israel led to a first Arab-Israeli war, resulting in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, known as Nakba. The Gaza Strip was controlled by Egypt until Israel occupied it in 1967 during a six-day war. Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005 but maintained control over its border, airspace, and sea access. So then there comes Hamas, a Palestinian militant group that governs Gaza, does not recognize Israel, and is engaged in armed resistance, including rocket attacks and terror attacks inside Israel. Israel views Hamas as a terrorist organization and has conducted multiple military operations in response to attacks in Gaza. So the political and religious factors. Jerusalem is the key point of contention, as both Israelis and Palestinians claim it as their capital. Religious sites such as the Al-Qaeda Mosque have been flashpoints for violence. And there's international involvement. The U.S., UN, and other global powers have attempted peace negotiations, but no lasting solution has been reached. Regional powers, including Iran, have supported militant groups, while Israel has received military and political backing from the U.S. and other Western nations. Immediate triggers of fighting. Violent escalations often arise from specific incidents such as attacks on civilians, military raids. It's a bad area. So the bottom line is the true reason for fighting is the combination of historical grievances, territorial disputes, and other reasons. So that area is a hotbed of junk. And you can take it back to biblical days if you want to. That is where the Holy Lands is. That they call it the West Bank right now. That's what Jerusalem, Bethlehem, everything is. So this is a hotbed. And I take it back to Abraham and the whole bit of the two-state deal. You know, it just goes back a long way. This war is, I don't know if anybody can do anything to Gaza. I really don't. But they're definitely not going to let them send all the people away and then put a resort there. It is beautiful land. It's on the Mediterranean Sea. And it would be a wonderful thing if it was a beautiful place to live and people live there. But the U.S. taking it over? What are we doing? Are we just going in and taking over countries? Panama, Canada, Greenland? Now he wants Gaza? This is ridiculous, guys. So let me just show you the Gaza map and what it looks like here, if you want to look at the map. And for those of you that are listening, I'm showing the map of Gaza. It's just a little strip, guys. It's along the Mediterranean, and it's right there. It's not even I think it's 140 miles long strip right on the Mediterranean Sea. But what it looks like now is pretty devastating because of all the fighting. But it is in a prime area of the Mediterranean in Israel, the West Bank. So you have part of this area that's handled by Palestinians. And this whole area is Israel, the country of Israel. Egypt on one side, Jordan on the other. And then you have this little strip of Gaza that's kind of in the middle of this area, which is kind of crazy. So this is what we have going on here. And luckily, some Republicans got a backbone. Even Josh Hawley came out and saying they didn't think about this was a good idea. But you got your standard ones, loyalists, that are just standing behind him and saying, well, he has a strategy here. It can be a great... No, we have people involved. There are people that live there. It is their home. And quite frankly, guys, I don't know that a two-state solution or anything is ever going to solve this particular conflict. I don't know what we do. But I think what we do need to do now is get the hostages home. First priority. Even Bibi Netanyahu was looking at Trump like he was crazy in this press conference because it was the first he heard about it. It was quite comical. But, you know, Trump is always thinking about himself. He can think there could be a Trump Tower there. There could be casinos there. It could be another Riviera. He even said it. It could be another Riviera. He says, I don't mean to be flip or whatever, but it could be another Mediterranean Riviera. Yeah, this is your president of the United States. Wow. So that's the whole Gaza thing, and we're going to stay close to that story and see how it develops, to see how Israel responds, because I don't think Bibi really wanted that to go forward. He didn't say anything. He says that he has different ideas, and sometimes you have to just listen to him. But he didn't say anything in agreement, so to speak. I didn't hear it. All right. So let's move to our next subject. And this is the Treasury, Department of the Treasury, and our dear friend, President Elon Musk, our Vice President Elon Musk, First Lady, whatever they've been calling him everything. Donald Trump has given him access to the Department of Treasury, and they're going in there with flash drives. He has his little cronies with him, his little geek friends. And they're going in there and they're looking at our personal records, the Department of the Treasury. So Democrats are fighting back. Finally, where are the Democrats? Let me let you hear what Jasmine Crockett, and we had a protest on the steps of the front of the Department of Treasury with the Democrats and a lot of supporters, and they're starting to fight back. Listen to Jasmine Crockett, who is my shero, as she talks to the crowd in front of the Department of Treasury building. Here we go.
We know that we work for the American people. And what we're not going to do is stand around while they pull this bullshit that they trying to pull right now. Go ahead. This is why I'm not going to be able to preach, because I probably won't be able to stop cussing. Take your time. But let me tell y'all something. I know some of y'all have been frustrated. And you've been saying, where Democrats? Where are our leaders? Well, I'm here to tell you that we ain't never left y'all. All right? We are here. We are also going to make sure that they uphold the law. We are not going to sit around while you go ahead and desecrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed into law and say, never mind, we'll just ignore that. Instead, we are going to be in your face, we are going to be on your asses, and we are going to make sure, so let me tell you something, Mr. Trump. You're going to learn a few lessons from us. And I'm going to be the first one. You and your little friend off of Twitter, y'all about to find out, all right? Now let me be clear. What Maxwell said is true. Our job is to conduct oversight. We both serve on the oversight committee. And right now, as elected leaders who tried to go in, we were told, well, hold on a second. We got to check to see if you can come in. Now, y'all know he likes to pal around with Putin, right? He's trying to turn us into Russia. But I got news for him. We, the people, will not go. That's right. It's cold out here. And y'all, yeah, we won't go. We won't go. We won't go. We won't go. Listen, the final thing I'm going to say is there are those that have said that we may face a constitutional crisis. I want you to know that the crisis is here. I want you to know that the power belongs to the people, though, y'all. Do not feel powerless. In this moment, as the vice president said as she conceded the election, she said, dark times may be ahead of us, but she said it's only in the darkness that we can see the stars. I am telling you right now that the stars are right here. It is time for us to shine. It is time for us to be heard. It is time for us to make sure that they know we will not go.
All right. That's my congressman. I am in her district here in Dallas, Texas. I am so proud of Jasmine Crockett, who takes leadership. So Democrats finally got some fire up under them. They march. They march the cap. March up there and find out what he is doing. Trump doesn't even know what he's doing. Nobody knows what he's doing. Speaker Johnson doesn't know what he's doing. They've come to his office. Some of the reps went to his office. What is he doing? Nobody knows. And this is not what happened. So let's just see who has jurisdiction over the Department of Treasury. You'll be shocked to know some of this stuff, but I didn't know, but I'm going to help my friend ChatGPT is helping me understand a lot of this. So let's see who has jurisdiction over the Treasury Department. So who has the ultimate jurisdiction? The U.S. Department of Treasury operates as an executive branch agency, meaning it ultimately falls under the authority of the President of the United States. However, the department's powers and responsibilities are shaped by Congress, federal law, and the U.S. Constitution. The President's authority. The President has broad executive power over Treasury, including appointing Secretary of Treasury, of course, setting the economic policies, of course, and issuing executive orders that direct the Treasury's actions like freezing assets, imposing sanctions, or adjusting regulations. Okay, that's good. I understand that is an executive thing. He also has the power of influencing budget priorities, which is fine. If you want to go into the Treasury, find some programs that you want to look at to see what the spend is going, that's fine, including how funds are allocated. Limitations of president power. The Treasury must follow laws set by Congress, meaning the president cannot unilaterally change tax laws or increase the debt limit. He can't do that. The Federal Reserve, which influences monetary policy, operates independently from the Treasury. So now, congressional oversight and authority. Congress has significant control of the Treasury, including passing tax laws, approving the Treasury Secretary, regulating national debt and borrowing, overseeing Treasury operations through committees like the House Ways and Means and the Senate Finance Committee. So those are the things that Congress has. So Trump is just not following the law. He's just trying stuff, guys, to see how he can do it. And if nobody stops him, it just happens. The role of the Treasury Secretary, they manage the federal finances, enforcing tax laws, imposing financial sanctions, overseeing economic policy implementation. Pretty much the same as the presidential power, but he's allocated it to the Secretary of Treasury. But Elon Musk is none of these things. He is not an elected official. He cannot just be in there. All right. So the president has significant influence over the Treasury, particularly through the policy direction and executive orders. However, Congress retains ultimate control over taxation. So Congress, when they're on that steps of that, they are just as big a member of the Department of Treasury as the president. So refusing them access, no, they should have been let in immediately. They should have been let in the deal. So let's ask the next question. Is the president within his right to allow Elon Musk accessing Treasury records? No. The president does not have the unilateral authority to grant Elon Musk or any private individual access to Treasury Department records, especially those containing sensitive financial information. Legal constraints on Treasury records, federal privacy and confidentiality laws, right? Taxpayer information protections. That's one of the laws. Even the president cannot overrule this law to grant a private citizen access. Financial privacy laws. The Treasury oversees financial institutions and transactions, but laws like Bank Secrecy Act, Privacy Act of 1974. Unauthorized disclosure can be illegal and lead to persecution. Separation of powers and government ethics. The Treasury operates within legal framework set by Congress, and external access must follow proper channels. Allowing a private individual, especially a business executive like Elon Musk, access to Treasury records could raise serious conflict of interest, security, and ethical concerns. Special cases where access may be granted. If Musk were formally appointed to a government advisory permission, he might receive a need-to-know briefings but not unrestricted access to Treasury records. So, has he been formally appointed? I don't know. He's over Doge. Is that an appointed position? I don't know. So, let's see. Musk's company Tesla is under investigation through government contracts. He's in there looking at his own records. Bottom line, the president does not have the legal right to grant Elon Musk access to Treasury records without violating federal laws and financially privacy tax confidentiality laws. He doesn't have the right to do that. So people need to be suing. There's a lot of lawsuits that's already gone forth through private organizations and other things, citizens. So there are ways to stop him. There are ways to stop him. Guys, this is a big old giant mess that we have going on. All because, and I'm going to keep saying it, a lot of you, and I'm not talking to the forever Trumpers, we know you're going to be there no matter what. The man could shoot somebody in the street and y'all going to still be there. But those of you independents or you regular Democrats that decide you want to teach them a lesson during this election out of all and allow that man in office. FAFO. This is what we have to find out. We done fooled around and found out what is going on. Lord, help us, Jesus. Help us. So now we have the dismantling of the Department of Education. Yeah. Let's see what is going on here. So I asked the questions, why are Republicans attacking education? Everything always comes back to race. All right? This is crazy. It comes back to race, education. This comes back to banning books and white fragility and our white brothers and sisters just not wanting to own anything. They don't want their kids to know anything about it. That's why they hate us black people to talk about any history, because our history always brings up their history, which is not good. I'm sorry, it's the history. We have bad history. So let's see what the Republicans attack education is all about. All right, why are Republicans attacking education? Republicans-led efforts to change education policies in the U.S. stem from several key ideological and political motivations. Yeah. The opposition to the woke curriculum and critical race theory. All right, they're thinking we're teaching the white kids. I don't know what they think. CRT, that's one of those catchphrases. They don't want kids to learn anything about African American history. What happened? I'm sorry, guys, it happened. We come from a racist country that was Jim Crow divided. Parental rights and control over education. This growing conservative movement pushes for greater parental control over what children are taught in school. You have that right now. If you don't want your kids to go to public school, send them to private school. You can do that. You don't have to follow what the federal government. Private schools have some jurisdiction with the federal government, but a lot of it, they have things that they can do on their own. Laws have been passed in several states requiring schools to inform parents about discussions on gender, whatever. Okay, go to the PTA meeting. School choice and privatization. Republicans advocate for expanding school choice programs, including charter schools and voucher system. In Texas, we're having a vote on this. And it's getting scary, guys. Critics argue this weakens our public school system. Censorships of books and restrict. This is the big one. They don't want anything to be learned about anything about LGBT, anything in schools. They don't want any kind of teaching of that, whatever. Teachers have reported being restricted from discussing certain aspects of American history, particularly those related to slavery and civil rights. This is what this is all about. Opposition to teachers' unions. They don't want any teachers to get unions. Teachers are a wealth of information in this country, and we need them. And they've been talking about unions, and they don't want that, anything like that. Republicans are just kind of stupid sometimes. Influence of conservative media and activist groups, right-wing media outlets, and advocacy groups such as Moms for Liberty have amplified concerns about education, making it a key issue for Republican campaigns. High-profile cases such as Don't Say Gay law have fueled national debates. Yeah. You remember that. So in conclusion, Republican-led efforts to reshape education reflect a broader ideological struggle over cultural values, parental rights, and the role of government in public school, while conservatives argue they are protecting students from political indoctrination. Critics warn these efforts undermine academic freedom, restrict access to diverse perspectives. It's about race. It's about owning up to the fact that we have dirty history. I mean, if you've seen the whitewashed version of what they want to teach about slavery, it's ridiculous. We as black people are finding out things that happened that I didn't even know that happened. People that invented things, people that did things. We didn't know. All this stuff was kept away. We couldn't do that. We couldn't do a lot of stuff. And we're finding out, and they're teaching it in history. Yes, little white kids need to know about history. We have to know about white things that happen in history. Why not the black? We're part of it. We're Americans as well. All these banning of books. I mean, classic books. To Kill a Mockingbird is a banned book. All right? That's on the banned book list. To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes. So this is what this whole deal is about. Dismantling the DOA. So what are some of the effects? I'll tell you. Of dismantling the Department of Education. All right, so dismantling the Department of Education would have significant and widespread effect on federal education programs, funding civil rights enforcement and data collection. Whew. Department oversees policies affecting K-12 higher schools and special education, student loans, and civil rights. Key areas affected by funding for K-12 schools. Department administers billions of dollars in federal funding to states, school districts, particularly for underserved communities. Eliminating it could corrupt funding for title grants, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA grants, English language learner. You know, they don't want to teach any other language, all right? Higher education student loans. It's going to affect that. Pell grants for low-income college students. Federal student loans, subsidized loans for higher education. Public service loan forgiveness. Forgive student debt for those working in public service jobs. So they want to get rid of all this stuff because I'm going back to my word, white fragility. If the department were dismantled, student loan programs could be transferred to private lenders. Interest rates, it's just a loan. Civil rights protections in schools. There'll be none of that. The Title VI prohibits racial discrimination in federally funded schools. We have no protection. Are the states going to do that? No. The states are not going to do anything. This is the only protection that we as people of color have had, is to have the Department of Education to make the states do what they have. Without federal oversight, civil rights enforcement will be left to the state governments, which may not have the resources or political will to enforce protections equally. This will lead to increased discrimination. National education standards and accountability. The department plays a role in settling and monitoring education standards. No federal oversight of standardization, testing, and accountability measures. States setting their own vastly different curriculum standards. Some of these states have the worst education, like Mississippi comes in 50. We don't come in that far. I think Texas is like 48. You know, it's like the disparity between school districts is ridiculous. And then the big one, school nutrition program. Guys, we have people that just don't have the money. Can you imagine being a kid and you have no money for lunches? I remember back in the day when we used to have lunch tickets. And the kids that didn't have money, they used to make fun of them, but they got to eat. You know, if you had lunch tickets, everybody thought you were on welfare, you know. Let's see, data collection and education research. So the National Center for Education Statistics, they take care of national statistics. There will be none of that. College graduation rates and workforce outcomes, state-by-state comparisons of education quality, none of that. A lot of these states don't want to be on the list, like Mississippi's like number 50, and your congressman is voting for this. You need to work on your education. Let's see. Potential outcomes of eliminating Department of Education. Education equality could become even more unequal. Do y'all remember separate but equal? That is why we have HBCUs. We couldn't go to white schools. That is why we had desegregation. Because our schools were nowhere near the white school districts and what they were getting. Higher education could become more expensive. States would gain full control over education policies. Bottom line, while proponents argue that eliminating Department of Education would return power to states, local communities, it would also create major funding gaps, increase educational inequality, drastic differences in education access and quality across the country. There would be no oversight on education, guys. I'm sorry, but our states don't do the right thing all the time. So what can you do? You can do a lot of stuff. You can do a lot of stuff if you're concerned about that. You can contact your elected officials, call, email, write letters, U.S. senators, representatives, state legislators, urging them to oppose efforts to dismantle the Department of Education. Use your online tools like congress.gov or Common Cause. Those are links that you can find. Attend town halls and public meetings. You got to get involved. Support education advocacy groups. The National Education Association, NEA, American Federation of Teachers, Public Education Network, Save Our Schools, SOS. You know, these are groups that advocate for education funding, teachers' rights, and student protection, and they organize public groups to help. So the least you can do is call your congressman. And of course, vote in local and federal election and look and see what their education policies that they are supporting. You got to support pro-education candidates, research candidates. Know what their stance is on education. Get involved in local education. Go to school board meetings. Join the PTA. Organize your own and participate in community forums. You got to do something, guys. Spread awareness and use social media, which is what I'm doing. Share facts, petitions, and calls to action on platforms like Twitter, Facebook. Get out here like I'm doing. Put op-eds and letters to newspapers. Write an op-ed. Send it to the newspaper. Educate others about potential consequences of dismantling the Department of Education and limiting federal oversight. Most people don't know what this has. Support teachers in public schools. Donate supplies. Advocate for better teacher pay, working conditions to prevent educator short. Encourage businesses and local organizations to invest in public schools and challenge harmful legislation policies. Sign petitions. There is so much we can do as civil servants. Work with civil rights organizations. Title X10, IDEA, Title 6. Advocate for increased education funding. Push for higher federal and state education budget. Pell Grant. I mean, I don't know how else to say this, guys, but this is going to probably happen. So final thoughts. The fight for quality public education requires constant engagement and advocacy. So you got to stay informed. You got to mobilize your community. And you can help protect public schools. Guys, as much as they want to say things are equal and everybody needs to get on their own boots, it's not. It's not. I mean, the little black schools are not getting the same things as all white schools. They're just not. They're not. So the government has to step in. You would hope that states and cities would do the right things, but they're not. Okay? They're not. So there is a broader discussion on this. DEI, Department of Education, Department of Treasury. Why he's looking at the Treasury Department? He's looking at programs like Medicaid, things that are going to minority communities. That's what they're concerned about, the waste. They don't want to get rid of stuff like that. Even the U.S. aid. Is it going to African countries? Are we sending things to countries? All of this goes back to race. And I mean, that's Donald Trump's mantra. You can call it what you want to. And I know I was listening to Abby Phillips. You need to listen to Abby Phillips. She had a great debate tonight on DEI with the panel. I love her show on CNN. It was a great debate. And I think they made a little headway with some people like Scott Jennings, my favorite. But this is a fight. This is a tough fight, but you have to stay informed. Do what you can do. If you can't do what I'm doing here, talk to your neighbors. Find out information. And one of your best friends right now, guys, is ChatGPT. If you know anything about it, download it on your phone. You can ask it any question. And you can study about things. It's going to give you answers to study so you can understand what is going on. All right? So that's where we are today in Trump Watch, guys. And I don't know if we made any headway. I think that the Democrats coming together and getting some fire under them, it's going to start helping. I think that some of the lawsuits that have gone forth on stopping Elon Musk may get some court orders. I'm afraid if anything goes to the Supreme Court, because you see, I read all the things that the president can do with the Treasury, and it's kind of gray. So I don't know what the Supreme Court will do with that part. And the whole Gaza thing, guys, I want to hear from my Muslim community. The ones of you that did the protest vote to not vote for Kamala, but you decided to vote for Trump. I want to hear from y'all. Because Gaza is not happening the way you thought it was going to happen. It is way worse than anything that Kamala Harris administration would have done. Things to think about. So guys, this is my episode 6 of Trump Watch. And I hope you join me again on my podcast. And please know, you can watch this podcast on my YouTube channel. Yes, you can. You can just search for Kalo Star's Favorite Things. Or you can Kalo Star's World on YouTube. And you can check it out on my podcast here. I'll put the link here on the podcast so you can check me out if you want to see a visual of this podcast. But check it out on whatever podcast you listen to. Apple Music on Apple Podcasts. I'm also on Amazon Music, and I'm on Spotify as well. So you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much. And keep up the fight, and keep up the knowledge. Until we meet again. Bye now.